and reward and those. Thank you so much, Ms. Bev. You missed the good stuff, Ms. Bev. It's all right. So you want to make sure that you hold on a second. I gotta say yes. So you want to make sure that you understand that, okay? So that was a trick question. I set it up that way. Everybody always misses it, but that's a Hebrewism that 2 and 2 always equal 5. You can go to the next slide. So project management is this thing that we have to live and breathe and understand what we're going to do about it. So this is a typical flows chart of a process. Now, this is a lot of words, it's a lot of things, but in essence, it talks about how, let's go back. That's okay. So it talks about how do we deal with projects from a pure project perspective, right? Initiate the project is the first thing, right? Let's go back. It's okay. Let's go back. So can I drive that? Okay, no, you're good. So I might be doing it. I apologize if I am.
I don't think you are.
No worries. We're good. We can make it work.
Okay.
So
what happened?
That's okay. I tell you what, let's just leave it right there. We're not gonna worry about that. That chart is, you'll get that chart. What that chart framed for you is, you know what? I think it's on it must be on automatic, Miss Bev. That will not work tonight because
okay, so let's see. How do you take it off? Automatic.
Yeah. How about that? You should be in the setup where you say slideshow and it'll say seconds.
Have mercy.
Yeah, you go to slideshow and it'll say seconds and yeah. So as she finds that out, you just gotta go to the slideshow that you run and then yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
The first time that happened.
That's okay. So this chart is intended to be a thing that makes you think about the things that you have to consider about being a project manager, right? When you get a project, you know if you get it or not. Then once you get the project, if you're bidding the project, say if it's a construction, are we all construction people? Yeah, that was another trick question, right? So you get a project, it's like, well, we want a project, then you have to be able to take a step back and analyze the project from a context of what value and what risk, what reward, and what kind of things you have to put in place that hold on a second, let's pause for the call. Anything I can do to help, Ms. Bev? Is it where I might have sent it to you that way?
I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to stop it.
Can you make him the host?
Yes. You know what to do. I make him go. What do you want to share your are you able to share your presentation?
I can. It's going it may limit my bandwidth, but I could do that.
Because I don't know what's going on. It's my first time having this.
Turn okay. That's okay. Go to your just if you make me the host, I still okay.
Let me see, can we get out of it? I'm gonna stop sharing and start sharing back. That should solve it, right? No?
I don't know.
Move more slideshow options. Let's see. It says screen, last view, camera. No,
it would be
on?
yeah.
Display settings. Let's look at that. Swap, presenter, viewer, slideshow, duplicate slide, show taskbar. No. And slideshow, no. I'm gonna stop sharing and go back in. See if that'll help. It's the best I could do.
That won't do it. That won't. That's not like it won't do it. It's bad.
Because it's in the presentation.
Yeah, well, it may be. It's just you got to turn this. Don't do automatic slide. Just do it. Do manual slideshow, and you should be able to.
Okay.
Yeah, should be able to do it. Okay, stop right there. Let's go to am I driving? I'm not driving. Go to slideshow, Ms. Beth. Go to slideshow. All right, up there. See slideshow up on the top bar? Okay, go to that. Let's see. Click that one. Slideshow. Say not now. Okay. Not now. That's okay.
Where's not now?
it came up on my screen. Did you click
Oh, right
slideshow?
here, right there.
Yeah, just get not
Okay.
now. Okay, that's okay. Go to transitions. Okay. Okay, go to the over to the left. It says sound, duration, timing.
Uh-huh.
You should be there should be no sound. So go to make that more than 2 seconds.
It still
We
must
were
be
trying to
doing
turn it off, but
automatic. Huh?
yeah, go click that one.
To
Specify
do
length of
what?
time to get more time. Wait a minute. Click. Okay, stop. Advanced slide on mouse click. That should be what it should be. On mouse click. No, that's right. Okay, so that should be fine. Okay, let's go to the first slide. Let's go back to file. I tell you what, go do apply all.
Ooh.
Apply all right here. Just click that one just to make sure it's applied. Click on mouse for all of them. Okay, did it do that? Perfect. Okay. All right. So now let's go to
Let's go there.
let's go to file. Let's just see if it works. Go to file. Let's see.
We already got it back there. Oh no.
Go back. It's okay.
Let's see if this will work.
Uh
We'll go to where you were. Let's see if that'll
well
help.
go you want to see you want to see it.
Let's see if it advanced by itself.
Yeah. All right.
Put it on slideshow. I think the
You
problem
can run it.
is I moved the little pictures thing to the bottom. I must have hit something.
It's okay. So it's not moving, right? Let's go to
No.
another slide. Leave it right on here and we'll be fine.
Okay.
All right, go to another slide. Are you controlling that?
Yes.
Okay, go back to the one with the charts on it. Okay. All right, let's sit there a moment. So thank you so much all for your patience. You know, sometimes in life when you manage a project, you have to manage projects, right? So you got to take a breath and deal with it and just keep it moving. The key is the right mentality and right attitude. Anything can be resolved. So that's just another tidbit of project management. Never let the project make you lose your head, right? Has anybody probably had a project that they were managing and they got mad at the project or the person or the weather or the bricks or the saw? They got something that they were out of their control and you get upset. Yeah, so that's what you experienced tonight. Is like, no, just calm down. It'll be all right. So everybody can see it. So Ms. Beth, it looked like it's going okay.
What's this
All
up
right.
here? Does that mean slideshow too? Start from the beginning. Nope.
What's that?
Didn't want to do that. Then if I want to hit it
Don't do
down
that.
here, but that's the problem I think going on. Because my
Just-
pictures, y'all pictures
Yeah.
hide me from clicking that slideshow things and let me see, can I move it? That's what happened.
Yeah, you want to
Guarantee.
put that all the way back up though.
Oh, it's
This
still.
presentation, you want to put that back. Yeah, it made small.
I'm trying to move the people's picture out the way. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Okay. It's okay.
That toolbar thing. Okay, here it goes. Let's see what's gonna happen.
Well, you got to bring the pictures back.
Oh Lord. What happened? No,
Want to run
okay.
the okay.
Okay. Let's see what's gonna happen now. Let's see.
Well, okay. Okay. All right. So we're good. But I don't. Do you guys see the picture? Because mine's very small. You see it
What
big?
picture?
You see the slideshow picture that's big, right? Everybody see it full screen? Perfect. Okay, great. This is perfect. That's perfect. So I can make it work. So what you see here is we talked about before. I mean, it's a process of a project. So the key about a project, when you get a project, you've already put the number in, right? You've already assessed your manpower, you assessed your cost, entities, that's necessary. So when you start a project, definitely when you have to say, we hit the ground going, we shot the gun, it begins. So in many cases, there's some things you want to do before you like really put your feet on the ground, start running the project, because there could have been a time between when you put the number in and when the project begins, right? And sometimes it's a number of days that you are agreeing about. You agree about the numbers of days, and some days, and this is most of the cases, right? Ms. Beth, is the recording still back on?
Yes.
Perfect. So in some of the cases, that in most cases, team, is that there's more time than you anticipated between you put your number in and when they start the project. So what does that mean? That means as a project owner or a business owner, you've got to make sure your costs are right. So when you start the project, and if it's a normal amount of time between when you put your number in, when it started begin, you should audit where you are. You should audit your costs. You should make sure you know they're on the extenuating circumstances that have changed. Your labor force, perhaps someone got sick or someone can't do it, or your subcontractors. So you've got to allow a pause point, and you've got to make sure, and usually you know you're going to get a project, you're not surprised, right? You want to make sure you know as much as you can up front to make sure you're very anal. And this is where, as a project manager, or as a business owner, you've got to be really, really anal. And why is that? And I'm not asking a question. I'm just saying it as a question, because this is where you lose money, right? Because if you start a project and you haven't assessed, so if you get a notice of award a week out and then go to city council or whatever they're going to do to award you the project, or maybe they're going to call you and tell you to come to the office, right, and get the drawings and start the project. You got to be very honest about how the cost rolls up for you, what your labor particulars are, and what your subcontractor particulars are. Because if one of those goes down, you know, as a business owner, you need this project. You got some return earnings in this project that you need. You're gonna suck it up. You're gonna take it. You're gonna make it happen, right? And sometimes that's a detriment to us as business owners, particularly when we wear a lot of hats. So I'm spending a little more time in here because this is the first place you could start losing money, and we don't want you to do that. So if you have a project that will award it, let's use the airport as an example. Everybody likes airports, right? So you get a project, and they're just, you know, they're terribly slow at decision process because they got to go through a lot of hoops. So that's why I'm using it, not because I don't like airports. So you get an airport project, they say you won the project, then 6 weeks later, 2 months later, you start, right? Because you got to go to this, you got to go to that. So you want to make sure you have a clause in your bid that talks about you need a time to assess the numbers once they say your go. Because once they say your go, you've got to say, is there any extenuating circumstances in your world that impacted that project from a cost or schedule perspective? So that's the first point of pause that you want to make sure that you cover from a dispute resolution issue, is make sure you start with everybody really clear that all I's are on the same I and all T's have crossed the same T, and making sure that you are clear about those things that impact your bottom line. Many times as business owners, we don't worry about the bottom line when we start a project, right? Because we're excited. We're extremely excited that we got this project, we're gonna start, but you want to always breathe a minute and make sure that there is nothing in that project that's gonna be a detriment to your bottom line. That could be things like what we talked about. I'm gonna reinforce it one more time. We talked about price changing, because this thing we call after COVID is still real. Prices could change. Your key personnel could have changed, or a key subcontractor could have changed. Maybe they got another project and they can't work on your project right now. Or the owner said, you know what, we got you this project, but I know it's 2 months later, but we still need it at the same time. That's usually what happens, right? So what you want to do there, you want to make sure you negotiate. If that's the case, then you got to reassess a couple of things. One, your subcontractor and your labor costs for a project. But this is the things that sometimes as business owners we don't do, is what? Our general condition costs. Now, and I'm assuming everybody knows what general conditions is. I don't see your hands anymore, but if you don't, just put that on something and we'll cut that later. That's no problem. But at the big picture, general conditions is whatever it takes to run the project, right? Whatever it takes to run the project. So that could have done. So we spent a little more time with that to make sure you're clear that when you go back and look at this slide and spend some time with it, you understand there's a lot of dominoes that have to fall before you can actually engage a project. Depending upon the structure of your company, how many people you have, sometimes your chief estimator is also your project manager, right? Okay, I will. Thank you for that question. It's general conditions. So general conditions is, so let me break it down. So if I'm building a concrete wall, and I know my concrete wall has labor to build my forms and labor to form it out, and I've got to buy the mud, I got to buy the concrete, I got to buy somebody pouring the concrete, I got to do all of that. But the general conditions are whatever it takes to run that business. Say, for instance, your project is a small little business, and actually it is. It's a small little business in your big business, right? So to run that project, you've got to do a couple of things. One, you got to drive your car to meetings, right? You've got to pay for phone bills for cell phones, right? You got to pay for your workers' comp insurance and sometimes other types of insurances for that particular project for your company. You've got to pay yourself for managing that project, right? You've got to pay your staff for managing that project. So that becomes the general condition costs. If you want to bring water to the job site for your folks, that's a cost to you, right? If you want to make copies of drawings, that's a cost to you. And that's not a sub cost, that's a cost to you. So those are the general conditions. Things that are general conditions, things that generally have to be done to run a project, not your business, because that's a separate budget, right? But the general cost it takes to run your business, anything that takes, and it could be something like, wow, we don't have Nextels anymore, but that was a thing back in the day. You had two different types of cell phones, right? You had sometimes people put dumpster costs in general conditions. So they don't put dumpster costs in Division 1 in the site work call. Anything you could think about running a project, you would put in general conditions, and you would make a list of those. But that's a great question. So you want to make sure you got all those things covered. So, see, this is when we talk about making sure that we give you information that impacts your bottom line. This is usually where the hurt starts hurting, right here. You get a project, you're waiting on a favor, you need that money because you know how much your profit was in that project. You need that money. It's making cash flow for your project. So you take it, and sometimes you take it under stress. And you want to make sure that if there is stress to take it, you want to manage the stress best you can and manage your exposures best you can. Any questions on any of that? Okay, you can go to the next slide, Ms. Beth. I hope I can see the next slide. Are you there? Okay. I need the next slide. Okay. Okay. So this particular slide talks about project selection. Ms. Beth, can you make that bigger? Can you make that regular size? I want to drill into it. Okay. No, that's okay. No worries. That's not going to do it. I just really need to run the slideshow that I could see it and talk about it. But if that's okay. Can you all see the big slide? Yes. Perfect. Okay. So what I talked about in this, perfect. So when I talked about for probably a long amount of time is the project selection issue. So, and you look at these bullets, it talks about making sure you make the right choice for the project. Now, sometimes you've already selected the project, if you will, but sometimes in a pure business development perspective, you have not selected a project, and that would go what we call go, no go call, if you have to make some determinations of what makes sense for you from your tolerance of risk perspective to be to accept a project. So that's where this makes sense that this should be considered. Those things that are in that on those bullets, some of them probably already covered, but you want to make sure you have that covered. This is another slide. Project management begins with selecting the right project at the right. I can't read it, but it's okay. So these bullets talk about, again, what I kind of framed in the first thing. You want to make sure that you did everything you could to protect your risk position, or protect your house in some cases, right? Protect your resources in other cases. Make sure that that's covered. You want to make sure that that's done right. So that's the first bullet up and lesson up, that we want to make sure we're clear that it should be done with a lot of thought behind it. And to do that, you got I'm gonna pause, another pause point. So in many cases, when we do our estimates and we're running to the next project, but I know this is not an estimating class, but from a project management perspective, in some cases there's a handoff depending on the size of your company. You've got a superintendent or an estimating team that field engineer that does the numbers. Then they hand it off to whomever is going to be the project manager, right? And sometimes there's transitional things that happen, meaning information may get lost or may not get lost. So you want to be very, going back to issues of exposure from a lawsuit perspective. Make sure you have very, very anal files that are estimating files. Make sure you have all your costs in the file, and make sure whether you're that same person, make sure you do a handoff between whomever put the number together and then whoever has to implement the project execution strategies. Sometimes those two different teams, and the cost mentalities, that how they assemble costs, how they deal with labor on the cost. That's usually where the problem is the person who does the labor thinks one way, and the person that does the project management thinks another way as far as how field will roll. And that becomes a function of productivity on the project, which could impact in a negative way your project if your productivity is not per forecast in your estimate. So you want to make sure that that's done and that's executed in a way that makes sense for you. So
do you want me to read the bullets?
I would love for you to audit the bullets for me. If I can't see
Okay.
them, that would be great.
I don't know why. There it go.
It's just a very small, hold on a second, maybe it's me.
The project warning signs, complicated contract terms, unreasonableness concerning price and change order.
Oh, Miss Beth,
Yes.
I fixed my problem. Great, thank you for that assist. These things that we talked about, unreasonable concerning price. We talked about a little bit about project selection, the broad array or vague contract, incomplete specification drawings. Sometimes we take projects that don't have complete drawings, particularly we know them well enough. That's one way you can kill a relationship when you do that. Owner safety requirements. Now, your safety requirements should be just as tough as theirs. However, sometimes there's particularly at airports, and we talked about the airports earlier, particularly at airports, right? So you want to make sure that you're really clear about that. Now, that is another point of pause, because if an owner has very strange safety requirements, you should have known that up front. So let's just make sure that's clear when you talk about bidding a job and knowing the culture of your client. If your client is a safety beast, or airport where they have to be, or you got AOA issues, airline operation area issues, and you have a lot of risk in spaces and places, you should know that up front so you can make sure you get that covered. Requirements for dual signatures on checks. Yeah, we probably won't get any of those, right? We don't probably get any of those, right? I'm sure you get those from time to time, right? In the contract, again, this is probably more setup work, but these clauses I hate in contracts, the LDs, we call them LDs, liquidated damages. Sometimes you have incentives in contracts for getting finished earlier. So that's another piece you would look for. That's a good thing. But when we talk about money and managing money, we talk about pay when paid. I think we all know what pay if paid. If you see a pay if paid in your contract, run away. Run away. That means that you can do the work, and the owner doesn't get any money, or something happens, you stuck like Chuck, right? You're not going to be able to really get remedy for that. So I would definitely advise you to pay when paid. You can negotiate that a little bit, but paid if paid is and a lot of times generals want to put a paid if paid on there. Well, what if I don't get the money? You know, that's an issue. I think you got to be real clear. If someone wants you to do the job, they got to have the money. Hold harmless is an insurance issue. but you want to make sure yourself is covered for that if there's some risk that you can. And every insurance carrier may have a different view of what home harmless is, but you want to make sure that you have protection for yourself. And that usually comes with on the insurance certificates where they have to have an additional insurer and that kind of thing for on your insurance certificates. You want to make sure you got that covered. And pollution, hair, and hazard causes. So you want to make sure that that is all these things that should be up front, but you want to make sure that you identify risk and reward scenarios for each of those things and make sure that you are okay in that space. Requirements for sustainability, increased liability insurance. Well, substantial increase. Sometimes if you don't know that up front, you couldn't have priced that. If they tell you at the end of the day, then know there's a change order coming. And it's almost, you don't want to start off with a change order mentality, but if you see some of these things that you didn't catch, it's better to be honest with them now that you didn't catch them, right? And yeah, you may have to eat some of that cost. You have to make that decision. What's the best thing to do, but make it from a numbers perspective, not emotional. That's the key about, and that was the whole lesson learned about the thing didn't work is about how do you manage it without emotion, right? We talked about that. And some of these things we talked about, they could be mostly challenged because it's costing you money. Well, he said, well, do I have enough in it? I could be all right. Or I know I got a little fat. I'm going to buy out the sub a little bit more. I mean, I may be able to figure out how to pull some money. We call it pull some money out the project, or my buyout, meaning what I bought the project out based on what I estimated for. It could be a delta. It could be a positive for me. So there's a lot of nuances that happen in that space, but you want to make sure that you are covered in any given Sunday, if you will, to make sure you're protected. Next slide. All right, we were doing good. Next slide would be great. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so the other thing that we talk about from a project management perspective is scheduling. Now, we all know what scheduling is. I'm sure we do. There's a schedule you have to do when you get the project. Sometimes you have to put the schedule in as a function of the bid, right? But let me tell you something that usually happens. Schedules are one of those things that everybody, oh, we have to have a schedule. It's great. It's wonderful. You turn in with the bid. That's usually not the schedule you use to run the project. I'm just being honest. That's usually not the case. You have another schedule that you do to run the project, right? So you want to make sure that whichever schedule is your final schedule, that you have one. And more times out of not, there is a schedule that talks about critical path and some other things as far as schedule is concerned. And then this thing called and that's what we talked about, CPM schedule, all that kind of stuff. That's wonderful stuff. But I'm gonna tell you, depending on the size of your project, you might not even have software for scheduling, right? But one of the best schedules I had when I ran my company in the early years was an Excel spreadsheet. So don't be afraid of going back to tools like paper and pencil to make sure, because a schedule is an assessment of money and resources and material for a project. And when I talk about money, it's really cost load of schedule, but it all kind of brings down the money, so to make sure you got that covered. So the bullets talk about develop project schedule, expedite the flow process. That's clear. Include start and end dates and level of labor for each resource required. Okay, that's obvious. So you want to do some things that you go to the next slide, Ms. Beth. So you want to make sure that you covered on the schedule that's concerned. So we talked about that. When we talk about scheduling, we really deal with look ahead schedules just as a pause point. Because if you have a big schedule, you want to always want to know what's if you meet every week on schedule, what's next week? What's coming next week? And do I have everything ready for that? And it may take other meetings to do that. Let's talk about job costing for a moment. Is everybody okay on time? Everybody good? No bio breaks. Everybody's happy. Everybody's good, right? Thumbs up. I like it. I like it. I love it. So job costing is this thing that sometimes people are like, what is that? What is that? What does that really mean? Well, estimating happens when you put the job together, right? And some bigger companies have cost departments where all they do is cost for the whole project. What this bullet is in this slide is hoping that you begin to understand is as bullet 1 says, job cost is the most critical reporting function in project management. Huge, right? Why is that? I wish I could hear you talk. If you could talk, you'd probably say, because you're talking about money all the time. The answer would be yes. So, because this is where you really get intimate with the numbers. Your estimate should talk about coding and 300 is concrete and and 500 is this, and 700 is doors, and 800 is, you know, all those things, 16 electric, 15 is mechanical, all those things should happen. But when you go to executing a project and you talk about reporting costs against work in place, that's a whole different mentality. So if you are a medium-sized company, you may not have a cost engineer. You probably don't, right? Somebody that worries about cost every day. But let me be very, very direct with you. Whether you have that function or not, that's somebody's job. Somebody's job description has making sure that the cost from the estimate first is really clear. That's the same cost as the execution team understands that they can do the job with, right? But then what happens in many cases, you start creeping, which I mean by that, it's the money start going out the back door or going down the sink. Or my point is you start wasting money for somebody was late with some material, or you thought it was two yards of mud and they needed 6, and you had to buy the 2 more. The more yards you had to buy was at a price point higher because you ordered smaller quantities, right? If you order a pour at 8 yards and you need 2 more yards, that's going to cost you twice as much, right? To get the mud, just talking about a sidewall. It's simple sidewall, simple sidewall, simple sidewall. So you end up paying double what it costs to do that. That's just an example. But anything that impacts the numbers, you want to make sure you got it covered. The second bullet talked about compares the estimate, which we talked about, actual cost for each project across, each project and across each project. So when they say for each project, as a business owner, that's for each of your projects. That's each one has a culture for cost. I call it a culture for cost. If you don't have a culture for cost, you need to be working with somebody else because that's really going to protect your money. And when it says across project, it means inside the project itself, right? Each project and across the project means that you deep down. So early warnings against problems in job performance, changing costs and labor and materials, and cash flow management. We talked about that, right? We talked about, look, you know, you started with one thing and you got another thing, right? So you want to make sure you're really clear what that is. And this is so important to you as the owners of your business. And that you probably need to think about this later on, tomorrow, next week, next month. Make sure if you got a number 2, there's someone in your company or someone responsible for estimating or cost in the project execution side. You want to make sure that you have that discussion with them. Now, what are the basic components of job costing? Pretty straightforward, right? You got unit costs. And everybody knows what unit cost is cost of stuff that happens. You know, the activity costing, phase costing really talks about what's going on in a specified amount of time and what's going on over a period of time, activity or phase, right? Now, divisional and departmental costing, if your company is large enough, you may have a division. You say if you do concrete, I want you to talk later because I don't need to know what you do. But if you have a concrete team and they do Division 3 work, and you've got a person doing drywall and framing, that's Division 9 finishes. That's different cost models and different kinds of things that you have to talk about. Many cases in smaller companies do not have that. Larger companies may. And when the last bullet talks about total company costing, that's the mentality as the business owner that we want you to really put your arms around, right? Because you want to make sure you're real clear that every week you talk about costs, not at the end of the month. You want to know that people turn their tickets in on time. You want to know that they report their labor hours on time. You want to know if someone didn't show up for the job. You want to know because those things cost you money, and you want to talk about that from a culture perspective. Now, it depends on the size of the project, right? So if you have a little bitty project, and once a week is probably necessary, right? If you got a larger project, maybe not every week. Maybe it's every other week. What I'm trying to share with you is that most people look at monthly cost reports, cadences, right? You got to do a monthly cost report. If you got smaller projects, by the end of that month, you lost money. That's the whole point. I want to get this urgency in your spirit that you don't want to lose money, right? No one wants to lose money. So you want to make sure that you manage the costs as frequently as you spend that money. If you got a fire hose coming out, you got to throw a bunch of money out with labor costs or material costs. That's the easiest way I've seen happen over the years where people start losing money. They didn't bring the ticket back, or they went too far on the gas, or my kids ate my homework. My point is there's some excuses that none of that makes sense. None of it makes sense because at the end of the day, you're losing money. And if you've got to get this in your head, if you don't have it already, that as the first bullet said, is the most critical reporting function of project management. So when you talk about reporting function, you do that reporting function for what? For obviously managing issues and managing things. So as a business owner, right? That's one kind of reporting function, right? So you get that, you get the high level. But what you want to do as a company owner is have conversations inside your company, whomever is responsible, if there's a superintendent or there's a person that's responsible for install or whatever particular piece of work that you're doing, you want to make sure that just as they're responsible for the schedule and making sure that the punch list is small, you want to make sure that the money is right too. So that's the mentality you want to share with them. When I talked about 2 and 2 equal 5, this is what I'm talking about, right? The sum's always greater than the part. So as a team, you want to make sure that you're real clear that these things are just as important to you as a business owner as it is to someone who works for you. Now, it's hard to legislate that, Lord. Let me be real candid with you. It's very hard to legislate that, right? Because you're the one who got to stay up at night. You're the one who is the bottom line. The buck stop with me, and you're probably one making more money, right? Let's be honest. So you want to make sure that even though maybe you're making more money, but there's still, and it's not, again, we didn't really stage it that, but I'm gonna always go back to the emotional conversation that we had at the beginning of this conversation as far as this class is concerned, because that's where you do not get emotional. That's because you have it proceduralized, you have it in writing, everybody's really clear, and you manage it as incrementally as you can, as short amount of time, or depending upon the complexity of the project. You want to make sure you do that. Any questions? I covered a lot. I stood here for a moment because I want to make sure and don't try to get all this and chew it up and swallow and digest it. It's not gonna happen. Don't worry about it. Just think about what I'm saying at the high level. Think about how you ran a project and maybe you didn't audit at the end. You don't know what the SWOT analysis was. You don't know what you did wrong in the project because you had another project you had to run to real quick. Just think about that a moment, and then we'll come back to that later. Okay. Okay. Next slide, Ms. Beth. Techniques. Everybody has a way to do something, right? Managing project budget, schedule, resources, and materials. We kind of talked about that. Reviewing estimates versus actual. We talked about that. Let me just make sure. Let me lift that point one more time. This is where I've seen, and this doesn't matter how big the company is. Let me be honest with you, because I since Turner's one of the folks on this sponsorship piece. I started with Turner. I worked for 9 years at Turner, and Turner has cost engineers, right? That's what they do, but they also have an estimating department, right? They probably still do. I worked there in the 80s, so that was a long time ago, but they probably had the same functions. My point is, there's someone maybe in your company that just like Turner, but you don't call it that, but it's the same function. Maybe it's you. Maybe you did the estimate and you got to walk away from it, change your estimate hat on and get another hat called project manager hat on, which asks different questions. My point is you want to see the estimated cost versus actual cost. And we need to get you a sample job cost report. You can talk about that. The project manager has to make sure he or she approves cost, right? Reviewing and verifying invoices. Sometimes if you're not, let me stop a moment to talk about a project manager should be the most anal, organized person on your team, at least on that project. So when they verify or reviewing invoices, there's nothing under the table, nothing with stick on the back of a truck at the bottom, nothing that's lost, because you have a method of bringing all the information in to your space and making sure you account for those things. And you do what so invoices do what? They go to some type of billing department, or maybe it's your accountant. That was your last week, right? You talked about accounting, making sure that you make sure you're clear on that. This is one thing that people hate. The next bullet, daily reporting. The title of this class, it talks about dispute resolution, those kinds of things at the end. The daily report, besides making sure your estimate is right, making sure you're clear what the owner has, we call them DCRs in the field, daily construction reports, right? You want to make sure that, and many times larger projects have books on the superintendent's office with DCR on them. If you go into anybody's office as a superintendent, you'll see something that says DCR. That's the first most powerful line of defense you have to protect yourself from lawsuits, right? Is that. So whether you have 20 people on your company or a person and a half, you and somebody else part-time, right? You want to make sure that you do all you can to have daily construction reports. Now, why is that so important, right? Well, it documents everything. It documents that a form typically has who's on the job, what trades are on the job, what was the weather like, what was delivery, what came with the delivery, who delivered it. Those kinds of things are on that, and you have that every day. So if a subcontractor was supposed to show on Monday and he showed a Wednesday, the electrician didn't show today, noted. You know, in your monthly or weekly scheduling meeting, they may come up, but that could end up costing you money down the road, or right, or I was waiting on this decision from the client, no decision rendered, right? So that would be able to give you ammunition to make sure that you're clear that it wasn't all my fault, right? There's delay that you had and those kind of things. So those kind of things that is important. Tracking and completing contract and project paperwork. Again, they have to be the most organized person that exists. So you want to track and you want to make sure you're clear on who and where the information is housed. So when I started in this business in 1922, I'm not that old. I'm trying to get you guys to break it up a bit. You look kind of serious. But back in the day, things were different. We didn't have soft files like we do now, right? And you have soft copies and you got hard copies. Soft copies means electronic. And so now they're even getting a lot more loose, particularly with the invert of iComputers, iMacs. They are notoriously about not having good breakdown structures, work breakdown structures, meaning you can put anything in any file you want to all the time with a Mac, right? Not so much with a PC. My point is that whether you do it in a paper way, whether you do it electronically way, do it in a way that makes sense to you, because you cannot find anything. If you got an invoice that's supposed to be in a file, or you ready to do your bill to your client, you can't find stuff. Maybe you just got a file that says August invoices, and everything that goes in August goes in this file, and you may do it, you may organize it later. My point is whatever makes sense for you makes sense for you. So you want to make sure you do that. And I'll lift to you, family, though, if you have nothing, then you need to put that down as something you got to change, right? If you or if you think it's loose, or if you had too many times, you're like, it took me too long to find it. Because as a business owner, if you're taking an hour, half an hour to find a piece of paper, that's, if you think about, if you walked away from that, you had one of the moments you out of body experience, and you looked at yourself looking for that paper every day for half an hour for a year, you're going to see what I'm talking about, right? You're wasting your time. You got to manage your time better than that. So you want to make sure you're covered about that. So when we talked about techniques about project management, I mean, we talked about making sure that they're the best and brightest that you can get, because they want to be the most anal, maybe analer than you as far as that project is concerned. You want to make sure you review costs in action. We talked about early on. That's another hemorrhage way that you can lose projects. Review and verifying invoices is critical, because and I'm gonna lift this up, I didn't share it with you before. If someone loses an invoice, meaning for 2 months, and they don't lose it, maybe they meant to lose it. I don't know, right? Maybe they did it for a reason, I don't know. Point is, you don't have it anymore. And then someone bills you and they have those costs in there, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't, this is too much money. Or the price was going up, you didn't know it. Maybe you had too much concrete, maybe it was something else, maybe the estimate didn't work out, and these invoices came in, they were too much, but you didn't know it because you didn't have it. So when they submit their invoice to you, you look at paying it, it's like, wait a minute, I don't, where's this cost coming at? So those things you want to make sure that you're anal about, and they're very clear. Any questions? We covered a lot of things. I know we took a moment to get going, and now we're going really hard and heavy. But I'm trying to slow myself down and make sure that I give you time to saturate and give you time to make your notes. And so my point is, if there's anything that I need to go over, I'll be more than happy to do. I love the questions about the general conditions that helped us all explain what general conditions is, so we can have that saturated, I call it saturated meaning, saturated learning. So at this point, is there any questions about anything that I've covered that you may need additional drill down in? I would be glad to cover that with you. If you have a note, you want to make a note, and you can send the question up later. We'll be happy to follow up with you after this call. Or you want me to keep going? It's 6 is, well, my says 7:59. Yours says 6:59. We have another hour with us, ladies and gentlemen. Got a lot to cover. And I'm going to probably speed up the cadence a bit, because you have hard copies of this stuff. You can always go back and do it. So I want us to have the time to talk and listen to you guys, right? So that's really what, so we're going to spend the last half an hour, last 20 minutes just listening, talking a little bit. So I'm going to move pretty fast for the next quarter. My point is, take a deep breath, go to the bathroom, take about 5 minutes, a little break. We've been at about an hour, come back ready to get down with all the good stuff that's coming down, and we can go ahead and push this thing over the line about 7 o'clock your clock, 8 o'clock my time. Sound like a plan? It's my clock says 7, let's say 8 o'clock. Boom, just turn 8 o'clock. 8:05, let's have it back in. Let's keep it moving, okay? All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna stay here, Miss Beth, so if you got questions for me or anything like that. I can't hear you though.
No, I
If
have no
anybody has
questions.
any, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Anyone? Okay. So what I'm gonna do, Miss Beth, so I want you to know when they come back, I don't know these folks, and I want to know them. So I usually would do that at the beginning. You know, I usually do that at the beginning.
Yes.
But I want to, since we made the beginning work and we did it, I'm gonna do it now, and it's gonna take a little time, but I want to make sure, so then I can follow up later.
Okay.
Yeah, with them. It's not 100 of them either, so we get like 2 minutes or so, quick elevator speech, and we'll rock and roll after that. It's in 4 more minutes. What kind of companies do we have? Just curious. Are they all construction
have
companies?
electrical company, cleaning company, construction company.
Okay. Some GC, some subs, some others. Cleaning company usually have a couple of. Okay. All right then. That sounds like a plan.
I don't know what caused the thing to start going. I think I must have hit something when I moved that little picture row over. I must have hit something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you saying we've done it so many years, these things can happen no matter what it is, and you gotta get through it. And
Yep.
we did, so yeah, all well. All right, we got, wow.
3 more
Time is
minutes.
flying. It's only been 2 minutes. I thought it'd been like 10 minutes already.
No, it has not. Ooh. I'm sleeping.
How many more slides we got, Miss Beth? About 10?
I don't know. Let's
Don't
see.
worry. I just want to pace myself.
Let's see, what can I do?
Don't worry, it's going smooth. Just let it go. Don't worry about it. Run out, I know I'm at the end.
I'm gonna see. We're on techniques of project management.
Yeah, that's about there. That's it. Okay,
That's
cool.
the end.
Whoa.
1, 2, 3.
Is there more after a 10-minute break? What's
No.
after that?
That's the end, because I didn't know where to
perfect.
put it.
Oh, don't worry.
Let me go back to where we are. Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah,
10.
yeah. So it's
And you
really
only
9
had like 15.
no,
or
but it's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, like 17, 16 slides. So you have a lot on each slide.
Yeah, we do. One more thing. Yummy. I love slushes. Okay. 4 minutes. Let's go to the next slide, though. We can start with the next slide. Excuse me. All right. Should be good to go. Everybody should be back. We covered the first half. And now to jump into the second half. But before we do, I need about 2 minutes from each one of you to tell me who your name, your company name, you know, just a little bit. But now I don't need a whole elevator speech because we don't have a lot of time. I just need a little quick intro so I can know who I'm talking to.
Travis Patterson Enterprises, general contract and construction.
Okay, you were right on point. I was talking. So Travis Patterson from Patterson Enterprises. You a general contractor?
What's that?
Perfect. Got it. All right, who's next?
All right, Lamont Harris, Harrison Associates. I do renovations and construction. And so
Okay,
I do.
good deal. All right.
Kennedy Richardson,
Brandy.
K&D Express. I'm a small trucking company. I do hauling and transportation.
Okay.
Brandy Aiden, building construction management, an industrial, commercial, general contractor, and performing more of the construction management, project management aspects of construction projects.
Got you.
Willie Frazier.
Madison South.
So Willie Frazier with A1 Electrical Contractors. We're electrical contractor, do renovations and new construction.
Got you. Okay.
Madison South. I'm Secretary of Building Construction Management with Brandy Aiden.
Okay, Brandy. Okay, that's you team, right? Brandy and Madison are a team. Okay, perfect. Okay, good deal.
Yes,
Good
sir.
deal. Perfect. Good deal. Okay, perfect. Anybody else? Okay. Well, good deal. Thank you. So, well, I'm just an audit. I have a general contractor, got CMs and the PM. I got a subcontractor, residential and commercial, and we have an electrician, and we have, I thought we had a janitorial cleanup. I thought I heard that as well. Is that correct?
They may not
All
be
right.
on tonight.
Okay, no worries. Okay, good deal. Thank you for sharing that. I would try to make it kind of make sense, right? Make it relevant for you. And many of you may have dealt with some of the things that I've shared with you. There may be some things that you do with every day and it's old stuff for you. Hopefully, because we got a lot of folks with a different lenses, right? We got some more seasoned folks, we got GCs, we got subs. So hopefully that works out. So good deal. Let's jump back into it. This is a holdover from the other slide, monitoring and managing job costs. You can't say that enough. And I said it a lot, so I'm not going to get into it as much because we want to leave time at the end to talk a little bit. But if you don't have a monitoring mechanism in place, make sure you have that. Make sure you monitor that. Make sure you understand. If you don't, you probably will lose money. I mean, it's really that simple. If you don't, and the piece sword, right? We talked about monitoring, but this other piece about minimizing is huge. Now we've got some generals and we got some PMs, CMs on the line. That minimizing is key. That's really talked about how you run your project. How do you cut? How do you measure twice and cut once? That mentality. How do you make sure that you're getting as much efficiency out your team as you can? That's one of my many job loss. That if you miss the estimate, the estimating side, and I'm going back to our concrete slab example, and somebody didn't check it, then you're going to end up having.
Hebrew, we can't hear you.
We
We
lost
lost
our
you.
instructor.
We lost it.
He's back in. It looks like he's coming back
There you
in.
go.
Okay.
Unmute, Mr. Dixon.
Some
I
next.
can't. Next slide. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. We're good.
We thought we lost you.
You did. I lost you.
Okay.
Is what that was the weird part. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Drill into it. The issue of job site meetings, like, okay, you all get that. I know you get that. But you say how important it is to make sure it happens, not just to check, not just so you want to say I did a meeting, but there's something that you get out of it. You got minutes, because this is where you're sometimes if it's you're general, you have subs report their activities. If you're CM or PM, you have subs or sometimes generals report their activity. So you want to make sure that you're clearly again anal about this thing about project management. We talked about the generality of job site meeting. Let's look at some of the specifics there. You got initial pre-construction meeting. We didn't say those words, but when you have get a project before you start, that's the point of pre. You want to have this conversation, maybe with their major subs, maybe with all your team that was working.
Mr. Dixon working on that cricket phone.
He's on cricket. Did he leave out, Lawrence?
That's what it is, that cricket phone.
He's coming back.
Whatever it is, but it's not cricket, but I'm back. I
I'm
heard
just
everything.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, you weren't, but it's okay. But job site meetings, it's all good. It's all in fun. The types of meetings are important. Subcontractor meetings, you got pre-construction meetings, you got weekly planning meetings. All those meetings are important, and they all need to make sure you do what? You are covering your costs. Make sure you know exactly what the costs are and how you engage those costs. So you want to definitely make sure you do that. All of you have these kind of meetings. Probably maybe not have the pre-construction as much. Usually that's an owner-driven meeting, but I want to make sure that you know, as a business owner, you need to have that for you before you start. And I kind of talked about that at the beginning. Before you start one nail on one board, before you start spending any money, before you start anything, making sure you have a pre-con. We call it pre-cons, right? To make sure that that's done, make sure that's as it should be. We didn't talk a lot about safety. We're going to get into it a little bit more. It's a function that saves you money. Lives are the most important thing to happen in safety. But if you can do safety, people cannot get hurt, but you can still lose money. So we want to make sure that you deal with those realities. You go to the next slide, Ms. Ben. Booyah. Here we go. Everybody likes this, right? Change orders. So the reason why I was anal up front about making sure you tracked everything, making sure you had someone that's anal that keeps files, and making sure you do your DCRs, and making sure all of those things lead themselves right here, right? Because change orders is, in some cases, what some general contractors or owners say that, you know, the subcontractor or the general in that context of hierarchical, they're a change order contractor, right? Because that's all they think about. Because you know the drawings, someone missed something in the drawings, you want to do that. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you understand that a change order could make you lose your company if you don't do it right. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, that you don't track a change. We talked about request for information, RFI. If you see the first hint in the project execution side that something is different than what you estimated, right? Or the owner asked you to do something that was not clear, or heaven forbid, the drawings aren't clear. right? The detail worked out. So in those cases, you want to make sure that and this is the hardest part of a project, my brothers and my students. This is the hardest part of the project because this makes you have to work every day. This makes sure you have to make sure that there's a request for information. Just like you have the DCR, you got to book a request for information because we can have a whole class on cost control procedures. But for practical purposes tonight, RFIs are the first thing you do when you find out something is different than what you thought it was, right? And then that's when sometimes you begin to, contractor escalates changes for impact on schedule budget. That's when you begin to say, I didn't figure it this way. Or maybe a superintendent comes for the owner that's different, and the owner says, you got to hurry up and finish it. And he says, well, I'm going to do it this way. And you didn't spend your money that way, ended up costing you money. So those kinds of things are important. The third bullet talks about based on contractors' information, contractors submit to change order, scope, cost, and impacts to the architect or whomever they submitted to upline. And you can get a sample change order in there. But my point is that this line of command, usually what happens first is the RFIs are not done right. They're not done annual, they're not done early, they're not done often. And it's a relationship. Oh, well, it'll be okay. Or the architect, you don't want to call them out, or the owner, but you want to make sure that you give all this. And the other thing that usually happens in this thing about schedule, many times when we do our estimates, we don't talk about time enough, right? So you can have an estimate that impacts your time. It could change the sequence of work. Maybe it doesn't cost any more money, but you didn't think about it that way when you made the project, and it makes you have to do things differently, which then could cost you money, right? Or it just costs more time to do something that they want you to do. My point is that you want to, as a good project manager, say you had your project management hat on for your company, right? You want to make sure that you do all you can to track these things. Now, everybody has these wonderful looked at programs, all kind of programs for tracking stuff. At the end of the day, Excel spreadsheet, as long as you do it you check it every day. RFI has a number, RFI number 1, RFI number 2, right? That request, I'm going to give you this kind of high level one. So RFI is just an RFI. You do that in a way that makes sense to make sure that you are really clear that you want to, at some point, ask for money. So when you do your change order, RFI 1, you submit the next document as a change request document, right? So that's a different perhaps law, because some RFIs are just information, they're not money, right? But some RFIs will turn into money. Then you've got this thing called a change order, a request for change order form that goes through. So if you don't have those two documents, you can call them whatever you want. The end of the one document says you got a problem. The next document talks about how much that problem cost, right? And those things will roll up into a change order to some point, to some degree. And then as a function of those, remember the things we lifted up for you is that always make sure you do your schedules and make sure you understand what the schedules are as it relates to the cost of work, because that is a cost to you. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a cost at all. But maybe if you add them all up, maybe they may be 1 day or 2 days. Maybe it's a half a day. But at the end of the day, you may have a liquidated damage clause in your contract, and you documented all the time that you had delay. Maybe it's a two-day delay, but no cost. That's another change that I've seen sometimes that people don't submit. Or it's no cost, but it cost me 2 days. At the end of the time, that 2 days will add up to maybe a week, right? So you want to make sure you do that. You go to the next slide. So this piece for me is like, wow, quality control, yay. Nobody likes to talk about that, right? Because I call it QAQC, what I call it, right? Quality control, quality assurance. At the end of the day, this is what you should do more than anybody else. You want to make sure that your project whether it's your paperwork is in quality shape, is filed, and the cost of work that you're doing or the kind of work that
You're fading out. I can't hear you.
the cost, and you make sure that it's done in a way that
Hebrew, let's start over. We didn't
I'm
hear
here-
you.
that will make sure that you are really clear that you cover those costs and you do all the things you do early on. So when those things become an issue, that you cover those things as it relates to the quality control of a project. If you do quality control on a daily basis at the end of the project, you more than that won't have an issue. Or if you see something that you have an issue with, you can fix that issue, right? So you can make sure that that's clear, that you can fix that issue and you can move on with that. You can go to the next slide. All right. More of this quality control stuff. So at the end of the day, this is a mentality we want to stress upon you to have. And well, I'll read some bullets to make sure we go through the course. Involving employees in development and refinement of quality control standards, right? That's making sure you share the mentality that we talk about as far as making sure people understand your sense of urgency as far as that's concerned. Providing bonuses in some cases and other incentives for employees for exceptional quality control performance. That makes sure that they're real clear that you get it, right? That you get it, you understand that these things can cost you money, measure twice, cut once, that mentality. And sometimes bonuses are appropriate if it doesn't impact your project in a negative. Recognize employees who exceed quality control. Some of these things are small in nature, or the button you have to do it, but it helps people understand you're serious about it, that you measure it and you monitor it, that to make sure that you're clear. Sponsoring company-wide.
Can't hear you. You faded out again. Is it my
Do
computer?
that. I don't know why. I'm just gonna keep moving with it, but I don't know why it does that. The same thing I've done all the way.
Okay.
Yep, we're good. If it does that, I'm gonna come right back. Just stay
I
with
can't
it.
see you. We can't see you. The
That's okay,
camera
but you
was-
can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You
Okay.
keep it moving. Thank you. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure you do all these things that we talked about to hopefully make sure that it saves you money. But we talked about the last couple of bullets. We talked about issue of culture. As a business owner, we want you to make sure you understand it is about culture. It does make sense that you share that culture with your team, making sure that your team understands that it's important to you, and that you can measure that in some kind of quantitative way. And you've got to be able to budget, paying people more, buying prizes, all that kind of stuff. But you want to make sure you do that, because at the end of the day, this is what the owner remembers most. Not how you started the project, not how you had all your creases in the right and everything was pressed that day. At the end of the day, everything went down on the project, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that you were able to walk out because you did your quality control. And let me tell you also what will happen in this space. If you have a mentality where at a third of the project, you want to do your own punch list, or halfway done, you want to check it, that helps you make sure you're checking not only quality, you're checking the money too, right? Help body stay on point. And then if you're on a team where you're a part of a bigger team, right, make sure that you interface, because sometimes what happens in these quality control checks, you find out that someone else is causing you problems, right? And you have to document that. And sometimes you can say, well, look, let's talk about this right now, because I see what's going on. I know it's not intentional, but this is having an impact on my bottom line, right? And not an emotional conversation, but a lot of times, we don't add all the pieces of the puzzle up to the end and find out, A, we got more puzzle in the box than we need, or B, we don't. We got too many holes in the project that we don't feel covered. So next slide. So again, we talked about this I call it QA, this QC QA conversation. This is the end of the day, right? You got the project, you're done with the project. It says measuring project performance. Did the company show a profit or loss? So that's something as a business owner that you've got to do. If you don't do it now, you should do it every project. You should see, and you should know where that goes every week, every month, depending on how long the project is. You should know where you are with that. Because one thing that you will do in this case, you will take those lessons learned from that experience and hopefully do better. The next bullet says, what activities similar to other projects, which you talked about lessons learned, or did they represent or move in a new direction? So how do you change the mentality? How do you change the activity? How do you learn from that experience even if you lost a whole lot of money in the project, and trust me, I have lost them because I know winning a lot of money and I know losing a lot of money. And that kind of conversation helps you refuel your engine. It makes you put high test in the management side of it, or maybe getting different project managers are in this case. Say, what does new direction make sense for your company? Those something for the moment. Do you have the right staff qualified? Right? Not the relational side, but quality side. Maybe you thought they could get down in a way that made sense for running your company, but you gave them the keys to the Ferrari, and it came back a BW Go, right? Because it wasn't handled properly. So you want to make sure you had the right person. Do they need more training? Now, sometimes you can have folks that you put them in a spot, and they need more training, and the heart is in the right place. They got all the effort. They're loyal. They're honest. Don't steal any money. Don't waste anything. But they just don't know a few things they need to know. There's training for that, and it can be performed competitively in this new area. And that's a question as a business owner, right? You have to ask yourself, can I do this work? I want to get on this project, I thought I could do it. I didn't make money. I lost money. Do I do it again? Does it hurt so much I'm not going to do it again? Or is the upside so much more greater that it makes more sense for me to do it again because the kind of money is in place, but I have to get trained. My team has to get trained. I have to get trained. In many cases, if you would even make some money, if you go to an owner, whether it's a general contractor owner, if you will, or a owner, if you will, like an airport or a city, they would welcome these conversations as a business owner. Look, I've looked at this project. I've analyzed my costs. I've analyzed my change orders. I've analyzed all the things that's necessary. I had a meeting with my project managers, and I'm coming to you for just a post-project meeting to talk about best practices, to talk about how do we grow, particularly if it's a city-based owner or one that, even if it's a GC-based owner that has a pretty decent size of backlog, or maybe a lot of projects coming down the pipe that you can benefit from, then you spend all the time. This is where managing the project as the owner makes all the sense in the world. This is where all we talked about, 2 and 2 equal 5. This is where it hits home, because it's making sure at the end of the day, as a project manager, you do this, or whomever does this for your company as a project manager. But as a project owner, you require this as well, and making sure that you understand how important it is to impact your bottom line, and how simple it is to do if you do it in the context. If it's a huge element, what do we have to do with elements? We got to bite it one bite at a time. One bite at a time. You looked at your go, no go calls, right? We got a better scenario that way. We looked at how do we get cost from an estimating to a project management execution side, the two mentalities. You talked about that. That's another piece of that elephant that you have to make sure that you can understand and manage. We talked about change orders and how those changes would impact your bottom line, because you're doing a great job looking at your invoices and making sure you're getting paid on time. But those things might uncover some things that could impact your bottom line. So all those pieces roll down to where you are here is, how do you know if you made money? Because retained earnings is the way. Having a project because your name's on the sign, having a project that because you always wanted it, kind of thing. But if you do all those things and you, in the end of the day, you don't make any money, that means you lost money. Even if you broke even, because you spent time and resources going after a thing, and that thing didn't prove to where it would do. That's not to say that's the end of the world, right? That's just to say that you're intelligent enough as a business owner, and you're aggressive enough as a business owner to make sure you cared about the details. My friends, the biggest piece of this puzzle is to talk about the issue of, what does it mean to you? What do you want? Do you want to grow your company into a multi-million-dollar organization? Or if you're already there, maybe larger than that, right? These kinds of things make sense. These other things are necessary to do that. Go to the next slide, Ms. Bev. About to end, and it's about where we want to talk a little bit about. Okay. So as the next domino, if you will, is how do we avoid these things? Some of these things we talked about, right? Quality control, I call it avoidance procedures, right? Conduct regular meetings and unannounced. We talked about meetings, but coming to if you're the owner coming to the job site, just come in. Don't come every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, because they know you coming every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, right? They're gonna make sure it's right for you. But you come at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock, or Monday it's 4 o'clock, right? So those kinds of things. Encourage work crews and subcontractors to perform unsanitary work where they are accounted before further work is initiated. My point is, if you drill down to the reality of everybody goes home safe, the point of report is that's the thing. Report unsatisfactory work efforts so it cannot be repeated. Have periodic quality control meetings to enforce expectations. I would even dare to say, put that on your list of your meeting list that you have, your agenda. You know, how do we do better? What's quality control? I mean, those kinds of things make sense. We talked about this last one, like survey owners and subcontractors and architects after the completion. We talked about that. How do you make sure that you measure and learn from that experience? Because many times, you know, because usually if you're like this, most small businesses are, you got to have another project way before the end of this one. You're busy because the end of this one, I call it put it in the box, meaning everything is checked, put in the box, and all the warranties are done, all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you put that in the box where that box can be profitable for you. But normally what happens is that people are going to the next job, right? They're going to the next opportunity. And this is what sometimes is left on the field as far as the necessity of this kind of thing, as far as making sure that you go through the tape, making sure you turn all your warranties in, making sure you do all the necessary things to do what? Get the retainer. One thing we did talk about, I'm gonna lift up again, is the issue of billing. Now, don't you all know that you can reduce your retainage 50% of the project? Everybody usually knows that, right? Everybody usually knows I got 10% retainage on a project and I get 50%, I can get 50% retainage. Let me tell you, out of 10 people that know that, 7 people don't do it. So don't be in that 7. It's just either they forget about it, they got a lot of money flowing, they don't worry about it. But you can reduce your retainage at 50%, but they won't say, oh, Brandy, you need to do your paperwork. Kennedy, you didn't do your paperwork for reduced retainage. Willie, you didn't send your paperwork for reduced retainage in. Why don't you go ahead and do that? They will not do that at all, because what does that mean? They hold that money. They want to hold that money as long as possible. So make sure you do that, and make sure you do it at 49%. You should be putting the paperwork in, because 50% is coming soon. Next slide, Ms. Bell. Safety, safety, safety. Oh my goodness. Now, this is not a safety class, say, but, and don't think I don't love life and love people coming home happy and not broke up. But I want to, as a business owner, be really clear that those things are expectations for you to make sure everybody comes home safe, they're not wounded, they're not, you know, damaged in any way. But for a moment, let's say that is all good. Everybody's happy, but you got some issues, right? And you've got OSHA inspections coming out. Everybody's still safe. Everybody's happy. Nobody cut their finger and nothing like that. But OSHA comes out, and because your paperwork is not in order, or you got a violation from a ladder or what have you on the site, it costs you money. So these things we want to lift up, because everybody, whatever state you're working, I know you're in Memphis, but you could be working in Arkansas, or you could work in Mississippi, you know, or work in Tennessee, you know, you could be in one of those places, right? But all of those P's have a separate criteria for the most part. But one, and I know you may know this, if you do, I'm going to say it, I'm sorry. Know who your OSHA person is. Most people on the job don't know who they are. So if they show up tomorrow and be like, hey, how you doing? Like, okay. But you should know your safety or your OSHA person. You should know them intimately. And that would be very helpful. There are different kind of violations, right, that you get. I'm not going to kind of go into each one of them. My point is, you've got a couple of, you may have one case where they let it slide, one. But what happens typically is you start getting fines, and those fines are significant. Again, everybody got home safe. Everybody's happy. Nobody's cut. Nobody's broke up. No issues with people, you know, coming to work tomorrow. But because administratively you weren't strong as a project manager, or your project managers that you have on the job didn't have the safety culture ingrained in them, then this will become a potential impact to your bottom line. Now, you don't budget safety violations. Nobody does, so you don't have to raise your hand. I do. I budget safety violations because that's going to be my money in my pocket later on. Most people don't. But it comes out your profit if you did. So you want to make sure that you got that covered. Even and honestly, even if you don't know what they are. See, that's pretend that we don't know what the OSHA violations are. And that's, most people don't, because you don't really, like, I'm going to learn what the OSHA violations are. Like, that's not like a subject like people like, yay, let's do that, yay. No, not at all. What happens is you learn about you live in it, and you just like, oh man, how much it cost? Oh, I didn't know that. So, again, it's not a safety class, a project management class, a business owner class. Make sure that you understand those to do what? To avoid getting them. So, and you want to, and don't carry that home with you and put it under your pillow like the tooth fairy, right? So you did good, you did tooth fairy, get a pillow, and you get some money because you did that, meaning no OSHA violation. But if you don't take that same thing and share it with your team, you know, that's going to be the issue that comes down the pipe that you potentially could be catastrophic for you, particularly on the size, some of the size projects that you may work on may not be huge, but potentially the OSHA violation could be more impactful on smaller projects. So I want to make sure you're clear about that. And you know, and at the end of the day, the OSHA folks that come out on the project, they're there to help you, right? They're there to help you, and most people come home safe. You run the job safe, i.e., have a relationship with them, because in many cases it's an arduous relationship with OSHA. When OSHA shows up on the job, everybody goes, "Oh God, OSHA's here. Oh, what are we gonna do? Oh, the evil empire is here. They're gonna hurt us. They're gonna take our money." No, they're there to hopefully get people to come home safe, and you run your business better. A better run business, a safe run construction site is one that makes money. So when you look at it from that context, I hope that you see there's some value in some of these things that most of your competitors may not even consider. Next slide, please. Then we talk about these relationships. Now, I looked at that a little bit when we talked about know your OSHA inspector. Nobody wants to know the OSHA inspector, right? Know your OSHA inspector. That's a relationship, right? I'm not saying y'all go get beers on Friday or go have dinner on Monday night. And if you want to get down like that, I get it. That's fine. But my point here is making sure that you understand the issue of the value of these kinds of things. Because many times, as I said several times this evening, people just run to the next deal. You go to the next project, you don't really have, unless you like them, there's something that you guys are on the same group or somehow where you connect for one degree or another in a relationship way. But in many cases, you know, the general contractor relationship doesn't exist outside of one contact. There's 3 other degrees of separation inside that organization. The subcontractor typically don't have relationships past the first degree, right? And particularly the owners, architects, and engineers, and then we talked about inspectors, they're not past the first degree, meaning there's the person who interfaces with them, and that's it. What I'm sharing with you, and this, again, this is project management, but it's really business ownership 101, is that, you know, do business with people they know, right? So when you look at the mentality of running your project, you want to make sure that you have an active way, right? Not it just doesn't happen by falling forward like dominoes do. When you push them just a little bit, they fall forward. You want to make sure you're intentional about knowing who's in this space of relationship. It could be that at the beginning of the project, you know someone. At the middle, you may need to know someone different, right? And my point is, do that in a way, maybe you put your business development hat on for a moment and you track that information and you see where there's some synergies relationally or otherwise, that there's some particular return on investments that may be harvested out of that environment if you manage it appropriately. It's almost like a retainage. If you look at relationships from there's money in this pot somewhere. And not to say you want to make money off relationships per se, but from a business owner perspective, absolutely. Every day and twice on Sunday, there's some kind of way that these relationships can impact your bottom line. It could be in a way that has more projects coming your way, or heaven forbid, you're in a bad situation. You messed up. And the one person that can save you is someone in an architect role or owner role that can say, we can make this work, right? I've been in too many places and spaces where my team messed up. Maybe I was asleep that night, and maybe I got back there, like, why did y'all do that? And no one says, they do Scooby-Doo. Y'all know Scooby-Doo. Some of y'all young folks, y'all might know Scooby-Doo, but I know Scooby-Doo. Oh, no, right? So sometimes you get that, right? And so from that context, you want to make sure you're really clear about how that happened. So I'm not telling you nothing you don't know. I just want to make sure you understand how it fits in the context of owning your company and a good project manager. And we'll go out to the next slide after this. Many of those relationships you may not know because your project manager knows them or your superintendent knows them. So you want to have some kind of dialogue with them to make sure, even if you give them Christmas cards at the end of the year, some kind of way to connect with them, but you want to transfer some of these relationships they have that may impact your bottom line. So we want to make sure that's clear. I guess we're gonna have some questions. Next slide. I think that may be the last one. Next slide. Yep, last one. So let's go back. So no breaks, no breaks, no breaks. We got 40 minutes to go. So as I mentioned before, we want this time to have, okay, hope everything works at the end of this 20 more minutes so we can stay together. All the mics can be on and we can have a conversation that, well, Hebrew, you covered this thing and I didn't quite get it, or maybe I didn't cover something you thought I was, or maybe you have something that you need specifically for you. This is the time where you pour it all out on the table. One thing about this class, you've already done one class. At the end of this class, you should be able to do some business together, right? You should be able to relationships. We're talking about relationships. That's why it's the last bullet in this particular class. So, there may be some opportunity to do some deals with each other. I mean, that's the best of all worlds that you'll be able to do that. Not to say it's a requirement, but you never know based on relationships. So at any rate, anyone that has any, now y'all get home early, don't have nothing to say, but I hope we run a little bit over because you do. I'm okay with the latter. So I'm stop talking, I'm start listening. I don't see anybody's mouth moving, so I guess we're good. Oh, Randy mouth moved, but you're on mute.
Brandy's eating dinner, sorry.
Oh, good for you. Yeah,
But
I
I
tried
am
that.
listening.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. No, that's what it's about.
Now, I did
Go
have a
ahead.
question about the 50% retainage.
Sure.
I wasn't quite following it as a general
No worries.
contractor. I've never had a subcontractor ask for that. And most of the time, my
good
clients
question.
won't.
Yeah. If you're a general, you probably hold them retained on your subs, I would think.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So, and if your contract says to your client that, and most contracts do, that you can reduce your retainage at 50%, then your subs should say the same, right? Now, maybe they
Okay.
don't. And that's why I say no one's gonna say, oh, gee, put your retainage in. And then you got to deal with your risk equation, right? Sometimes your risk means you gotta hold 10. I mean, there's too much risk, right? You just gotta hold it. But it helps everybody from a cash flow perspective. If there was an ability to release the 5%, then that may help some folks down the road. Do you request reduction on retainage from your client?
It depends on what project I'm working on and who I'm working with. Most of my subs have worked with me for years. If my client does it, or if I'm working on a government project, client does it, yes, I do.
Right.
Retainage.
Right. Good. I get it. That's good. It's relational. That makes sense. That's good. But see, what I heard you say, Ms. Benny, is that you're on it, right? Managing it, you're making decisions based on, needs of cash flow for a project and then relationships that you have to manage throughout your life cycle of your company. Great. Good deal. Anyone else? Any other questions? I hope you learned something. That was a great question, Ms. Brandon. Thank you for that. You teaching a class tonight. That's good. Anybody else? Okay.
I would just like to say I would just like to say, this is Willie Frazier with A1. I would like to say that the point that you made about the daily construction reports was a very good point. I had a project one time and I believe in keeping good records and stuff like that. And I bought a construction document book that was bound together. I had a disagreement on the job with the general. I was a sub at that time. And he had asked me to do something, and I recorded every day the weather, how many people I had on the job, all these kind of information. Well, when we went to the owner, because we had a dispute, he had asked me to do some work. And then when I did it, later on, he asked me to move it out of the way because I did it too early, and I had to let another the dirt contractor come in and do some work. And I wanted him to pay me for putting it back up. He didn't want to pay. When we went to the owner, because I kept a daily report, believe it or not, the general did not. The
Wow.
owner, he ruled in my favor, and that was like $22,000.
Oh, wow. That's huge. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a real return on that investment. Great. Thank you for sharing that, Willie. Anybody else? Well, I'm gonna say this then. I'm here for you if you have questions, if it was long, what have you. I'm glad you were here, and I hope there's something that resonated with you. From what I've heard from the introduction, some of you may be more advanced in business than others, and some of that may be less impactful to you because it was a lot of basic stuff. But what I have found over the years is that you always have to go back and look at the basics sometimes. Even and we're about to run the football, right? You know, they talk about blocking and tackling. That's what we really talked about tonight, is making sure we can block and tackle. Yeah, because those things win games, blocking and tackling. The things about the cost management, the things about making sure that you look at the project from an owner and a project manager perspective within the same hour with two different hats, different mentality, different expectations of performance. Those kinds of things make sense. Yeah, a lot of sense. So at any rate, I'm signing off. If you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to get them. I just appreciate us being able to spend some time together this evening. I always enjoy these kind of exchanges, and we're able to hopefully depart some information to you that can help you in the retained earning category. Thank you so much for participating in the BEP. I have a really long history with the bond education program. I enjoy it. I think it adds value to people's companies. Beth and I have worked together in the past. I've worked in other places in the past with the bond education program. We just want to have Memphis has been in Memphis for years, and Memphis is a very unique entity. It's a lot of work in Memphis, a lot of work in Memphis. It's probably we looked at what 5 of them is. That's what we're just talking about. And they're probably between the sector and the city and the county and the Fed, all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys are jumping in there and getting what you deserve. And so we just appreciate your time. I'm gonna let you go early. Miss Beth, thank you for all you've done. Thank you for partners, Miss Lawrence and Miss Melba. We appreciate you being here. Mr. Lawrence, did I say Melba right? Yay, there you go. Cool. We appreciate you all. Those folks are getting down for you every day. And so make sure that you call them up, and because they're there to help you as well. And I wish you peace and blessings and prosperity for you and your companies. So as I watch you go through this bond education program, I'm going to hopefully be at least on a virtual way in the end report and see how things go up. That thing for me for you this evening is make sure you, we talked about those 3 questions, right? What's project management means? What did you need in this environment, your company? How are you going to put it in play? And what?
It faded out.
I think he went in out.
All right, you guys, you got the homework questions. That's going to be due 24, 48 hours. Mr. Hebrew Dixon will be facilitating again next Thursday.
I am back.
Yes. I was letting them know, Hebrew, that they had the 3 questions that they had to turn in 24, 48 hours. And that you also will be teaching managing the next class, not next Thursday.
Yes.
Managing growth. Why some small businesses succeed.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I was at the end anyway, so thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good evening. Be well.
Right, bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you, guys. I look forward to getting your homework. Send your homework in from last what's the day? Tuesday. The day Thursday. Tuesday. Only 2 people. We had more than 2, about 4. Send in their homework. Please send me your homework. Okay?
The homework getting hard. The homework getting hard now.
Okay. Let me see what's in the chat. Chat said, thank you. Great information. Thank you, preacher. That's hair. Okay. So we'll see you guys. Was it Tuesday? Joe will facilitate from our end. I will be out. And everything should be fine. Lauren should tell Cedric, y'all have a master that Joe can go by. and we have to take the roll and everything will proceed, okay? We're out. Bye-bye, good night.